Hello my friends, it's been a while since we had the last update from this sector, Staromayorsky direction, where Ukraine started the assault during the summer campaign. The front line was standstill there for a very long time, but today there was the movement. Let's zoom into the place, and all of that is the Donetsk region. Here Ukraine was capable to liberate many of the settlements. Staromayorsky was liberated, as far as I remember, in August months. So let's check the timeline. For it, we should zoom into this place, and it was yesterday, and it is today. Russians were pushed a little from this place, and the Ukrainian army took control over this tree line. Well, the movement itself is not significant, as you see, but the Ukrainian army goes forward. Russia is still unable to take initiative fully. So what is the perspective for the Ukrainian army? I would say not probably for this year, because here are significant defense lines that Russian Federation was capable to build. And here we have the example of the Russian trenches. So they dig down to the ground at least 2 meters deep, and they build those corridors with ventilation, with communication, with special places for safety, and it's all underground, so FPV drones are unable to target those facilities. Only probably artillery or JDAMs might harm some parts of those trenches, and those are very long. This video goes like almost for 3 minutes, and all the time they go. The tunnels are very long, so it's almost impossible to get rid of the Russian army if they build those trenches all around. So defense is very significant. Luckily, Ukraine is building something similar on the northern part of our country and also on the east. I would say that it should have been done before Russia started the full-scale war against Ukraine. But the Ukrainian government somehow decided that Russia will not strike Ukraine, even though many of the Western intelligence services warned Ukraine that Russia will attack our country. Okay, we also have the positive news for Ukrainian army near to Terny. Here Russia started the attack, but Ukraine performed the counterattack today, pushing Russian army a little bit back. And here's the confirmation from the other source. Definitely Ukraine took some of the ground, but mainly Russia performs their attack. Ukraine fired some of the artillery shells on the Russian positions, as well as Russia fires artillery in front of their attack vector. This point of the front line between Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast is very active nowadays. It's been several times that Russia started their attack and Ukraine performed the counterattack successfully, and then it repeats once again. I believe it's the third time Ukraine performs the successful counterattack in this particular spot. Let's go to the south again, this time to Orikhiv direction near to Robotyne and Verbovo. There was the significant fight today near to Verbovo. According to Ukrainian military officials, Ukraine took the ground, but actually Russia propelled forward. Yes, at first Ukraine was successful, but later on Russia sent some reinforcements from Novoprokopivka. They united with their army group in Verbovo and started to push our guys away. And let's check out the dynamics. So it was yesterday and it is today. Ukraine lost one of the forest lines and one of the fields. For the last months, Russia took around this territory under their control. As you may see, they have lots of the assault vectors, but Ukraine still holds, for example, in Robotyne. Kind of the bad thing for defense that Ukraine controls the territory which is on the lower ground compared to the Russian-controlled territory. That is why Russia has some of the advantage if we speak about the geographical perspective. Let's zoom in a little, so I'm gonna show you. So here's the valley, and there is one more valley on the way from Verbovo. And in those areas we have the higher ground. Mykovsk 73 also shows us that Russia took the ground near to Verbovo with their infantry forces. Ukraine continued to use some of the surveillance and the artillery fire to stop the Russian attacks. But today Russia was able to move Ukrainian forces from Verbovo a little. As for the battle videos, there were not many videos published today, but we have something. For example, this is the Ukrainian assault in the Kupiansk region, the place where Russia usually attacks with their forces. But here is the Ukrainian CV-90. Yes, Swedish made, but in Ukrainian army. That's why I call it Ukrainian. This attack mission was successful for Ukrainian army, our guys, our infantry, to control over those trenches, and also obviously with the help of the CV-90, which was very close to the Russian positions. But it seems like Russians didn't have the tools to eliminate the CV-90, and our guys knew about it. I have the actual fight video, but I am unable to publish it over here, so for that please check out my Telegram channel. One of our soldiers filmed the video of the actual fight on his GoPro. And here is the first video of the Ukrainian battle vehicle, drone battle vehicle in use somewhere on the front lines. So there's the target, probably the Russian checkpoint, and vehicle goes and starts to fire some of the shells towards the place. Well, not the shells, but the rounds, I mean, because it has the machine gun, and the attack was successful from Ukrainian side. Great job performed by the operator of the remote control battle vehicle. But Russia also developed their weaponry. For example, they modernized their aviation bombs into the gliding bombs, installing those kind of the wings. Here we speak about the FAB 1500. It carries the enormous power of the devastation. With those wings and the V-type of the empennage, it looks like the airplane. Or it's better to say a glider. Still, they are not as precise as JDAMs, so Russians took the idea, but still far to reach perfection. Today, Shoigu visited the place where those bombs are being assembled. While still in the Russian military factories, the most part of the job is done manually. And judging on this table that is probably there since Stalin's times, well, it's the very old stuff. I wouldn't say that it is up-to-date facility. Yes, indeed, they have some sort of the modern equipment, which is supplied by China and capable to produce precise parts, but it looks like they have the single one. Russian propaganda definitely showed this from the close perspective, but they forgot about one image. Then Shoigu goes across the corridor. Here you may see a very old Soviet equipment, and Shoigu is quite disappointed. Those tools are being used, I'm sure, since Khrushchev times. Probably the Russian propaganda forgot to cut it out from this video. Nevertheless, this weaponry is very powerful. It's not precise, but it might devastate lots of the area then it hits the ground. And you see how it glides. It might cover around 70 kilometers if it is dropped from the very high altitude. The United Kingdom Prime Minister Rishi Sunak visits Kiev today. He arrived to Kiev introducing a great support deal for Ukraine. It's around £2.5 billion. Most of those funds will go to support Ukrainian military. Rishi Sunak said that the drone help will be extraordinary. It is great that UK officials do not forget about Ukraine even after a very important attack mission on Houthi rebels in Yemen, where Britain took a leading role, using many of the Typhoon fighter jets equipped with high precise bombs. The UK intelligence service will also share more information with Ukraine. Awesome. NATO officials forecast that the war in Ukraine will last for several years and will not be finished in 2025. They say that none of the sides is capable to achieve the military victory. They also admit that Ukraine is lacking support from the European Union countries. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the Western democracies thought that Russia will be calm for a very long time. But no, Putin wants to restore the Russian Empire in the previous borders. That is why Ukraine needs more and more weaponry. A similar notice we have from the Ukrainian military intelligence chief Budanov. He says that neither Ukraine nor Russia can conduct offensive operations. He means big offensive operations. Mostly it is because of the drones and the minefields. Everyone thought that Moscow had a strong army but a weak economy. It turned out to be the opposite. Indeed, the Russian army is not that powerful as it was advertised by Russia before this full-scale war. All of the forecasts from every military analytics were that Ukraine would last for a couple of weeks, not more than that, if Russia starts the full-scale intervention. Well, it happened, but Ukraine was even successful at some period of time, taking the vast parts of the territories back. But it seems like now we need many more resources to return more territories, including Crimea. Budanov says that the current sanctions are not enough, the Russian Federation is not starving, so they can last for a long time. Starving, he means not about the food, but about the spare parts for the Russian military. The European Commission wants to reach some sort of the compromise deal with Orban, so they want to give Ukraine around 50 billion euros this year, but after it, for example, in 2025, Hungary might deploy their own inspectors to find out how the money were spent and whether Ukraine needs more. So Orban could be a key decision maker in the future for Ukraine, but not for the coming deal. At least I understood it like that from this article. The Ukrainian commander of the ground forces, General Syrskyi, asked the United States to provide the attack airplanes like Thunderbolt A-10 to Ukrainian army. Well, those could be used very effectively if you have the air superiority. Probably Ukraine might achieve it by moving the air defense systems close to the front lines. We already see it on the south, where Russia lost many of the bombers. And with F-16s coming, I think A-10 would operate normally on the front lines. At least it's the logical theory, let's say. And Ukraine still uses Sukhoi 25 attack airplanes all around the front lines. A-10 is a fantastic airplane. Hopefully Ukraine will obtain them, maybe in a couple of years, maybe next year, no one knows. I already showed you this photo before in one of my videos. So this is the Iranian shell, this is the North Korean shell, and this is the Russian Federation shell. So at the first sight, everything looks fine. Russia has many more artillery munition. But I read today the review of the Russian soldiers about the new artillery shells which were supplied to them by allies. Let me read it out with a live translation from Russian into English. As you see, guys, we have many more artillery shells supplied to our army by our allies, Iran and North Korea. What can I say after speaking with many of the commanders on the front lines? Iranian shells are more or less okay, but the North Korean shells are total shit. Almost all of our soldiers cursed those shells because they do not allow to perform the mission. They are in lack of precision and range. Our commanders found out that the powder inside is not burning completely. That is why the range of the shell is almost 2 times less compared to the Russian-made. Also, there were numerous of the cases that those shells just stuck in the barrels of the artillery systems, totally disabling them. That is why we try to use them just occasionally, then the precision is not that important and the possible loss of the own artillery is not that critical. I read it out from the Russian media called Grey Zone. It's affiliated to the Wagner army. Well, what can I say? North Korea supplied 1 million of their shells to the Russian army, artillery shells and the tank rounds. The quality of those are shitty, as you understood. Why? Because probably storage wasn't done correctly. Those shells are old. But Iran and Russia produce quite modern shells compared to those that were supplied to the North Korea before. Good news for us, bad news for Russia. By the way, the bad news for Russia that the oil tanker that was carrying the Russian oil was attacked by the Houthi rebels today. Yes, even after the coalition strikes on the Houthi military positions, Houthis still have enough forces to commit their illegal acts towards the civilian ships. This time, by mistake, they attacked the Russian oil tanker. Also, it seems like they do not understand what the ecological disaster they might cause for this region and also for their own country. Complete madness from their side. The United States representatives say that they do not have any more plans for the future attacks on Houthis. But in any case, they will think about it if Houthis continue to terrorize the civilian ships. And today it was the friendly fire from Houthis towards the Russian ship. My friends, please don't forget to press a huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And also, if you want to support my job, you may find some of the links in the video description just below. Special thanks for my Patreon supporters and the sponsors of my YouTube channel. Guys, you are awesome. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.